Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today, I continue on with Season 1, and I'm speaking about the episode, The Deed. As Grandpa and John Boy are out on the mountain and looking for the next area to thin trees, they come across surveyors. Grandpa is astonished to see them there and says, "What are you doing here? You're on Walton land." And the surveyor says he is with Packard Lumber, and that Packard Lumber has the forest and logging rights to this parcel of land, and he is there to arrange to put in a logging road. Grandpa is incensed and is like, "We have this land, we own this land, and we're going to prove it." And John Boy thinks for sure they have a deed, and Grandpa confesses that they never got around to it. When John and Grandpa go to see the lawyer, he says basically that the Land Act of 1850 allowed all early settlers to file legal deeds on land they had right to long possession. Unfortunately, because a lot of people did, but the Waltons never did, they are going to have to go to court. Despite all the various different paperwork that Grandpa has, he does not have that legal deed. And it is going to cost $200 to arrange to go to court. The lawyer says he's pretty sure they're going to win this thing, but somehow the Waltons, in the midst of the Depression, have to find a way to bring together $200. All of the family wants to help in any way they can, and so they throw around a lot of ideas, from selling eggs and butter to Mary Ellen offers to sell this teapot that she has, that she found someplace in some old ruins and isn't sure if it's silver or pewter or what it is, but we'll sell it. John says, "No, you keep that." John's figuring out how he can gather up money that's owed. John Boy wants to go get a job, which John says absolutely not. It's up to him to find an answer to this. So I loved how the family was always willing to pull together as a team to overcome whatever the family was facing. I'm not sure that always happens with families today, and I'm sorry to know that. Despite Mama and Daddy having told John Boy he's absolutely not taking time off from school and going away to find a job, he does go, and he leaves a note saying that he's going to go and he will send back money. John Boy hitches a ride with Yancey Tucker. Bob Donner was once again doing an episode. I always loved working with Bob Donner. He was so funny. I mean, you can see that whenever you see him playing the character of Yancey Tucker. Just such great comedic sense, and Yancey was such a fun character. So Yancey is heading into town to do some sort of business, which I think involves selling the recipe or something. There seems to be something sort of juggling around in the back of his vehicle. But he tells John Boy what boarding house he can stay at and what he recommends, where he can go, shouldn't go. When they arrive in town, Yancey has a stop to make, and it's at a tattoo parlor, and he's going to go around back and deliver something. Well, meanwhile, these two criminals come in to rob the place, and Yancey comes scurrying out and hops in his car and goes, and John Boy's left there like, what, where did you go? You have my suitcase. And so he's a little stranded there. When he does make his way to the boarding house, Yancey has indeed left John Boy's suitcase on the front porch. When I first saw this Mrs. Vandenberg's rooming house, I went, gosh, that house looks familiar. A little later on in this episode, there's a point where John Boy is walking along the street, and I'm like, oh, that is Warner Brothers Midwest Street. And indeed, I think that house that served as the rooming house was ultimately the house that was used as Dr. Vance's office and later on became Kurt and Mary Ellen's house. So I'm like, no wonder that looks familiar to me. So the house, any number of these houses on Midwest Street, as a lot of the buildings got reused over and over again. They would just put up new signage. They'd do a little bit of exterior green work or decorating, and it would be a new location. Back home, Mary Ellen is complaining once again about never getting to do anything and about the choices for women at that time, that she isn't interested in cooking and cleaning and just being a wife and taking care of a house. And even Olivia says there's times where that's not what she would like to be doing either. But I so love those early episodes where Mary Ellen was so sure she was going to go out and conquer the world. Because of everything that is happening and everybody pitching in to help with things, Mary Ellen is left to take care of supper one evening and burns the stew because she is daydreaming or doing something else. And she's like, see, I'm no good in the kitchen. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And dinner becomes like breakfast. I think they have oatmeal and pancakes or something. And everyone's like, well, why are we having this? What happened? Don't we have any meat? And Mary Ellen says, well, we did until I burned the stew. And everybody takes it in stride and, they're pretty good sports about it. And Mama, despite being really upset with Mary Ellen, does recognize that Mary Ellen is just a different person, a different personality, and feels badly for, shouting at her, which I thought was rather kind of her. At the boarding house where John Boy is staying, he meets Sissy Brubaker, who is from only about 6 miles from Walton's Mountain. And when he actually has a chance to talk with her, they learn that they really are from the same basic area. And Sissy is there trying to get out of the small town she came from and forge a life of her own. And but she's not ready for people around there to know that she's from this little sort of hick town. John Boy recognizes that. And because of Sissy, though, one of the other boarders, Monty, recommends that John Boy come check out the place where he works, and he helps John Boy get a job. So John Boy does indeed end up with a job very quickly in town. Being somewhat naive to the ways of the city, on payday, John Boy goes out with Monty to a bar, or he runs into him there, and Monty's like, let's go get a drink. And John Boy says loudly enough to be overheard by these same 2 robbers that he has $18 and what needs to happen with that. And they talk about where they're going to get a drink. And when they leave, these robbers come and they attack them, John Boy and Monty. Monty runs away, says, run away, it's not worth it. They beat up on John Boy and take his money. So John Boy has a rather rude introduction to the big city. This episode gives us a really good sense of how difficult the Depression era was for so many people. Even the Waltons, who are more fortunate than some because they can grow vegetables and they have the land there, they can hunt, they can fish. So it's easier for them in some ways, but the idea of having to raise all this money was still very scarce. So you do see the challenges that they're facing trying to pull this together, and in trying to speed up the production at the sawmill. Grandpa makes a mistake and the sawmill breaks, and John realizes that he feels it's hopeless. They are not going to make this contract and get this piece of the money that they desperately need. As John Boy just ignored Mama and Daddy saying, don't go away and get a job, Mary Ellen also ignores that. They said, don't sell your teapot. And she flags down Vernon, the junk man. Love doing scenes with the junk man. I just thought it was such fun, those interactions that I had with the character of Vernon. So I flag him down. I show him the teapot. We make an arrangement. He's going to take it and see what it's worth. And then when I go back, he gives me a check. He says he sold it. We did well. And I am able to help out the family by presenting them with a check for $25. Huge amount of money in that day and age. So Mary Ellen feels very gratified to have been able to significantly help the family in this desperate time. Sissy convinces John Boy to go to the movies. There is a movie playing that it's the last night, and she wants to go. So she says that she'll loan John Boy the money until payday so that they can go. On their way to the movies, he sees these same 2 robbers holding up the movie theater, and he goes on the attack. Now there's a cut here where you see John Boy moving. Now we've cut and you see him launching himself at one of the robbers. So in that moment, a stunt person would have most likely, that's my, I'd wager money on that it is a stunt person who launches at this other robber who very well was also a stunt person. And then there's, this sort of wrestling match that they have on the ground. At what point it became Richard again? When it was, I'm sure, safer. It became, you just don't want to injure your actors because then production stops. So John Boy does tackle the two of them. Sissy gets in there with her handbag and beats up on them. And the police come, and John Boy saves the day. In the final outcome, as John is calculating how much they have, what they still need. They need just about $50, and John Boy comes home and says that he has $50 because he had a reward for capturing these two thieves. They go and have their court case. They settle it. They get their deed, and it is a happy ending for the Waltons. We get to keep the mountain and the logging rights and the trees and everything else. So another happy ending on Walton's Mountain. That's what I have for you for this segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons about the deed. I will be back with more Behind the Scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.